A few weeks ago, we met Amadi. He's 11 and a soft-spoken kid who loves video games, YouTube, and basketball. And we met Amadi while doing some research on emerging technologies. So we sat down with Amadi and a couple of his friends in Amadi's dining room and basically just asked him about the future, where he'd like to go, and what he'd like to do. Here's what he said.
I would go to Mars on my flying gold Lamborghini, and if I had magic glasses, I would wish for them to bring me my dog and teleport to an ice cream shop.
We've all been there. We've all dreamt about the future. I certainly remember being Amadi's age and dreaming about flying cars and robots that cater to my every need. Dreaming about where new technology would go and where it would take me. And when you dream of the future, what do you see? Do you dream about concurrent odometry and horizontal plane detection? Do you fantasize about hot words and utterance capture? What about maybe in this group here today at Playtime, perhaps, but at the world at large, probably not. More likely, we dream about the places we can go, the things we can do, and the people we can be.
I'm Franz, this is Fabian, and we're from IDEO. IDEO is a global design and innovation firm, and IDEO pioneered human-centered design, which is a philosophy and approach towards design which always starts with people's desires. And it's really the only way for us how we get inspired about future products and services. And we're here today to talk about how, in our experience, technology is always the most valuable when it helps us actually realize our dreams. And we really want to shift the thinking from what technology is capable of to what it enables us as humans to do. And these four emerging technologies are on everybody's lips today. It's like VR, AR, digital assistants, and of course as well, apps. And if we talk about apps, we're talking about that kind of app that you don't have to download and install. We will call them ephemeral apps.
Now, these technologies are becoming increasingly important computing platforms, and none of us want to miss out on the opportunities they represent. And some of you may already be working with these technologies, and some of you may be considering working with them. And you may be thinking to yourself, I'd like to get involved, but I don't know how. And if I jump in and get involved, what should I build? What should I make with these technologies? And I'm sure you're all asking yourself, how does any of this fit into my business, and how am I going to make money?
So today here at Playtime, we heard a lot about the capabilities of those technologies, about their features, and how to implement them. So we are not going to talk about any of that. What we are going to talk about is actually, what are these technologies good for from a human perspective? How do they fit into your business? And how you can get started? And of course, most importantly, how can we all learn something from Amadi and his golden flying Lamborghini?
Now, earlier this year, Google Play approached us, and they posed a pretty great question. They asked us, what are these technologies really good for? Now, we're really excited by them, and we know they have a ton of potential, but what do people actually want to do with them? And how can we help our developer partners, that's all of you here today, how can we help them make the most of these technologies?
And to answer the question, we did what we always do. We went out and talked to people. First, we talked to the people on the forefront of those technologies, researchers, developers, some of you guys here in the audience, because we really wanted to understand what are the people that are developing and creating with those technologies have been actually thinking about them.
And then we went and spoke to both users and non-users of these technologies, because we wanted to learn how people imagine these four things fitting into their everyday lives, what their hopes and dreams are when it comes to these technologies. And to do this, we hosted a number of group research sessions at our offices in San Francisco. The same themes kept coming up, so we're going to give you a peek into one of these sessions.
And for this particular session, we invited 5 people. Among them, a self-identified early adopter, a gamer, and even a complete technophobe. So just to let you know, if we do this kind of sessions, we like to recruit for the extreme of behaviors, so that we really span the full spectrum of experiences with any given subject. And it's really important for us that we have strong, inspiring opinions and perspectives to push our thinking. And as you can see, it's a very casual, in-person conversation over beers, so no one-way mirrors or fancy tracking technology. Because again, the intention was not to be comprehensive here. The intention was to really understand what people are feeling and what they want, what they do, and why.
And we didn't want to get distracted by some of the existing platforms or brands or products. And so in order to do that, we created a number of design exercises that abstracted each technology into something that people could hold, draw on, and use to start imagining the potential. Because we found that if you give something to people that's too polished, they'll look for the flaws. But if you give them something that's pretty rough, they can begin to see the potential. So let's take a look at what we did for VR, the exercise we did for VR. So to dig into people's dreams for VR, we handed out different scenes that ranged from the mundane, like commuting on the subway, to the more fantastical, like visiting Mars or flying over a city. And we told people to imagine that they were transported to this place. And then we asked them, how do you think you got there? What would you do there? Who or what would you want to bring along? Who would you want to communicate with?
And we also chatted with our group about AR. And to access their hopes for the future of AR, we did another simple exercise. We just handed out this piece of acrylic to lay over their scenes and asked them to draw what they imagine seeing through those magic glasses. That's how we call them. Here's what they came up with. And when we play this video about AR and VR, please pay close attention to what are their wishes. I mean, listen to what they're saying, but also what are the desires and wishes implicit in their words.
I'm underwater scuba diving.
I am in downtown Tokyo.
I am on the New York subway.
I'm currently skydiving over San Francisco.
I was in a meeting and I was really bored, so I decided to come to Mars.
I'm probably with my 7-year-old.
This guy looks like he could be a famous rock star, and it'd be really cool if I could validate that somehow.
My magic glasses allow me to share this experience with my followers in real time. Over here, we have the donations that are coming in live as my viewers like what I'm doing.
So here you see a notification. Lena wants to join me on my quest to find the Mars treasure.
My magic glasses have 2 modes. One is all about me, and one is all about them. So for the me mode, it would show me recommendations and newsfeed. And then for them, I would be able to understand how my fellow commuters are doing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they might need.
Here in the corner, you can see that I have a countdown to when my pizza arrives in the real world.
And in fact, I would want the ability to almost dismiss all of it and like better immerse myself in the environment.
So Nikki wanted to bring her kids along with her to Tokyo, and Angela wanted to find out about that potential rock star in the subway. And when we hear Susanna say that she was in a boring meeting and escaped to Mars to find hidden treasure with her friend Lena, we listen to that story. We don't tend to fixate on whether her VR headset is going to make her nauseous or how she's going to be able to pick up Martian rocks using motion controllers.
And don't get us wrong, sure, we know that all those technical constraints are important, but what people are actually saying is that they want to escape to an exciting place, they want to explore this place on their own terms, and they want to share their experiences with friends. So at its core, for us, the promise of VR is the ability to take us to amazing new places with new abilities that are only limited by our imagination.
Now, we heard from another person that they were playing Pokemon Go during their commute, and in doing so, they began to notice all these wonderful architectural details in the New York subway that they'd missed before. If you think about that story in the context of AR, and if you go beyond the surface, what people want from AR is to learn about their surroundings and the people within them. So in other words, the overarching promise of AR is that it gives us the ability to reveal and interact with hidden layers of information right within our physical surroundings.
Okay, now let's look at digital assistants. And to uncover thoughts on digital assistants, we did another very simple exercise. We just asked the group to basically write a job description for a real-life assistant. And we asked them, like, if you would have this assistant, like, what would you ask them to do? Which kind of skills do they need to have? I think most importantly, like, which kind of relationship do you want to have with this assistant? Here's what they said.
I'm looking for somebody who's very organized, self-starter, able to predict my needs.
Be able to keep my kids entertained without screen time.
I would say think Tony Stark and Pepper in Iron Man. She knows what he needs before he needs it.
And I would definitely look for a willingness to challenge my ideas and propose like new or novel solutions.
Keep me on track and honest with a lot of my personal goals.
So if they could show me a funny animal video every day, I would be very happy.
The unusual trait is that this person never, ever sleeps.
So people wanted their assistant to go far beyond just simple task automation or delegation. They wanted their assistant to inspire them, to motivate them, to keep them honest, and to make them laugh. In other words, what they wanted their assistant to be is to be very personable, and they wanted to interact with them in very human terms through natural conversation.
So if we think about digital assistants, we really need to think about their potential, which is that they can support us in very empathic and kind of very intuitive ways. So they can respond to our mood, to our context, and sometimes even challenge and surprise us. So the promise of digital assistants is to be able to control information in a very intuitive way through conversations. And we're very excited about what that could mean for conversational interfaces, and especially for the expression of personality through this technology.
Now, finally, we're going to talk about apps, a subject you're all very familiar with. Now, the introduction of ephemeral apps prompted us to revisit how people approach apps in the context of what they want to do, not just how they want to do it.
So we basically presented people with two scenarios. One was a new cafe opened near your workplace and you want to order something there. And the second one is you have to park a car in a city that you haven't visited before. And then we just asked them how they would do this in an ideal world, what are the challenges coming up, and how they would go about it. Let's take a look what they said.
I would like to pull up some sort of interface that will just magically show up and have a level of like social proof or validation that this cafe is actually good.
If I had a coffee around the specific time of day, it should just ask me, do you want me to order your coffee?
I would like to at least do it with minimal human interaction and with as few steps as possible. So things like payment information is already saved.
What would be nice, some sort of alert or my assistant telling me, hey, you know what, it's 10 minutes past the time you're allowed to park here. Don't park here. There's another spot 10 minutes away.
It'll just automatically detect when my car has parked and then when I've actually left.
Actually, what I would want to do is I want to pull up and have my car let me out, and then it would drive off.
Don't make me park. And behind the future that he imagines really is a request. And the request is that he doesn't want to deal with the task of parking his car. He just wants to get on with his day. And you heard another person say that he wanted to order food from the new cafe with minimal human interaction and with as few steps as possible. And what he's really saying is just make it easy and simple for me.
So if we talk about ephemeral apps, or about all apps for that matter, people aren't really that interested in which platform or service they're interacting with. They just want to do what they do, when they need to, and it should be as simple, delightful, and intuitive as possible. And to be fair, I mean, that has been the promise of apps all along, right?
Now, we had one more group session. This one was with kids. You heard from Amadi and his Lamborghini right in the beginning. We held a session with a group of kids aged 10 and 11, and we spoke to them about the 4 same technologies and their dreams for the future when it comes to these technologies. We did the same 4 design research exercises with them, with one exception. Instead of a human assistant, personal assistant, we asked them to design their very own personal robot because, well, hey, why not?
And again, we didn't look for inspiration from kids because they're going to be the core demographic of what we're doing here. But we asked kids because they have the ability to imagine and dream unhindered of any constraints of technological or historical baggage. And they really did. So let's see what they imagined.
This is Luchadora. It has stretch marks on its leg because it can be as small as fitting in your pocket and as big as a human. It makes gummies for me in its stomach. It rests underneath my bed, and it's my alarm.
I was transported to Tokyo, Japan, and I got here by taking my private jet. I'd like to bring my robot, my friends, my family, and tons of other things, including a device that I imagined that would be a translator that I'd put in my ear, and it would translate Japanese.
So what does all of this really mean? I know cute kids and all, but what did we learn at a high level from our research? Well, if you take a step back, fundamentally, the promise of all new technology has always been to expand our abilities as humans, to enable us to do things that we weren't able to do before. So it's never just been about what the technology is capable of, but more importantly, it's been about what it enables us to do as people. And that's a very important distinction. And these 4 technologies we've been speaking about give us fantastic new abilities. And I think that's why we're all so excited by them. But sometimes when we're exploring the features and specs and capabilities of these technologies, we can lose track of what they actually fundamentally mean for people. We can get frustrated by the shortcomings of the current incarnation of these technologies, especially when the frameworks are still new and we're all trying to figure things out together.
So here's a summary of the 4 technologies and what they enable us to do and what people are expecting from them. So VR should transport us to different places with new abilities. Augmented reality allows us to interact with hidden layers of information in our physical surrounding, while digital assistant let us access and control information and services through conversation, and ephemeral apps make it easy for us to do what we want, when we want. And it's really important that when we develop for those technologies, that we keep the human story in mind. We really need to ask ourselves if what we are doing is in service of the desires and dreams of the people that we're designing for. Because if you start with what people want and not what's technically possible, I think you have an approach that increases the likelihood of really creating something meaningful, desirable, and of lasting value.
Okay, so right about now, you may be thinking, interesting, cool, that's great, but how do I apply this to my business? How do I apply this to my particular case and my customer? Well, we've got something for you. If you reach underneath your seats, you'll find a deck of cards glued to the bottom of your chairs. For the people on the wooden chairs, they're glued to the legs. Pop, pop, pop. It's like popcorn. Right. Open the deck of cards up, and we'll go through them together, and we'll explain them to you. So we've called this deck of cards Human-Centered Design Prompts for Emerging Technologies. And the deck contains 20 prompts spanning the 4 technologies we've been talking about. And they're there to help you think of potential products in the context of your own particular customers' needs. They're based on our research on what we heard people want, and they're intended to provide guidance at that early ideation stage when you're trying to figure out what to build, as Ross talked about earlier.
So here's how these cards work. You remember Garrett, who earlier talked about his magic glasses. What he really wanted is the ability to dismiss everything and better immerse himself in the environment. So he's basically asking for a mute button to avoid any distraction. And that made us think AR might have the ability to help people focus. And that's not typically what we think about, right? When we think about AR, it's always about adding stuff, about augmenting reality. But what if we use it to remove things and to enhance focus? So is there an opportunity to help prioritize information in our environment through AR?
So say you picked up this card and it says, think of a moment in your user's day when they're overwhelmed or distracted. Now consider your particular user, their day-to-day life, and could that be a certain time of day, or maybe it's a certain type of situation they're in. You picture that scenario in your mind, and then you flip the card over to the design prompt, which reads, how might we use AR to remove distractions? So we'll give you an example so you know how this works. So say you're a physical retailer, and when a customer walks into your store, they're faced with hundreds, possibly even thousands of different products. And at times, your user may be browsing and they may just be roaming the store, but at other times, they may actually know exactly what they want. And in those cases, entering a store may be a very overwhelming and distracting experience. So you could consider creating an AR application that helps your customer find exactly what they want by simply removing what they don't. Now, that's just an example. There's a clear product opportunity there, but you can see how there's a very human desire, in this case, the need to focus, that can be met using AR.
And what we are doing here is basically we're finding a design opportunity which leads with a human scenario and a need and desire. So we didn't choose the technology first. We didn't say, which kind of AR application can we build? We basically asked, how can we help people focus? And AR might be one technology that does that.
And in doing this exercise and using these cards, you may also find that actually some of these technologies don't lend themselves to your business and your customer, and that maybe they're not worth pursuing. And that's fine too. At least by doing it this way, you didn't commit months of resources to it before finding out the hard and, well, frankly, expensive way.
OK, let's look at another one. Something Susan said about her personal assistant. She said she wants it to make her laugh and make sarcastic remarks. So that makes us think, like, if those digital assistants should have really human, meaningful conversations, they really need to understand the mood of the person they're talking to.
Or as Rupert put it, sometimes I want to have a discussion with it, sometimes I want it to give me some attitude, and sometimes I just want it to turn off the damn lights. So here's the corresponding card. Think of a moment in your user's day when their mood might change. So consider it. Is it when they're transitioning between different behaviors, or perhaps they're moving between different places, or it's dependent on who they're with? You picture the scenario, you flip the card over to the design prompt. How might we adapt the digital assistant's tone and behavior to the user's mood?
So let's say you're a company that basically delivers personalized news via the assistant. So you can imagine that somebody getting ready for work in the morning during a weekday wants very different information and has it delivered in a very different way than, let's say, on a Sunday afternoon. And I think it might be that they want more inspirational stories. They want to have more of a conversation with their assistant. And then the question is like, how does the assistant actually participate in this conversation? And the opportunity is quite literal. It's you can give your brand a voice and personality. And considering that your user's mood changes throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year, your brand should adapt to that, right? And I mean, that's for us the only way how you can have like a human, meaningful conversation and also a long-lasting relationship with people.
So those are just 2 examples of the set of 20 cards you have in your hands. And we hope you take these cards and some of the methods we shared with you today and use them as a starting point to imagining entirely new products, features, and potentially even entirely new businesses surrounding these technologies. Because getting started with these technologies can be intimidating, but we believe it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Yeah, we just encourage you to build those scrappy prototypes and go out and talk to your customers, because that's the only way how we'll find out about their dreams. I mean, dreams aren't made of specs and features, SDKs and APIs. Dreams are inherently human, and it's something that's deep inside of all of us.
So when building with emerging technologies, start there. Start with the dreams of those you're actually designing for. And also, sometimes, don't forget to tap into your own dreams. We're very excited to see what you come up with and what you create.
Thank you.